Today, we're going to talk about gender as an all-pervasive force. Gender is a complex aspect of the human identity which affects us in profound ways. But what exactly is gender, and how do we see it manifesting in our daily lives? Gender is a socially constructed phenomenon. What that means is that society has over centuries come together to develop certain norms, roles, behaviors, and expectations that are typically assigned to girls and boys, women and men. Although gender identity is our internal sense of one's own gender in relation to their sex assigned at birth and how society perceives them and treats them, gender in itself is socially constructed. It surrounds us all the time. It is constantly learned, unlearned, relearned, and reinforced. Now, what that means is that from the moment a child is born, and as we saw in the previous module, sex is assigned at birth, depending on whether the child is perceived as a girl or a boy, certain behaviors or expectations are subjected upon the child. For example, if a child is perceived as a girl, the clothing that would be given would be typically pink, the walls of their room would be painted in the color pink again, or typically things that we associate as feminine. They'd be given Barbie dolls to play with. But if a child is assigned male at birth and is perceived as a boy, the child would be given Hot Wheels cars and bats and balls to play with. The clothing would be blue, and expectations from a child would similarly vary and tend towards the masculine side of things. So as you can see, gender is constructed from the moment a child is born. Even before the child's internal sense of gender or gender identity develops, certain things that we correlate with gender, behaviors, roles, norms, and expectations as we learn, are enforced upon the child or at least are subjected upon the child. So as you can see, gender roles are first and foremost learned within the household. You see the women in the household, the mothers, older sisters, perform different tasks than you see the men, fathers, brothers, perform in the household. The girl child is expected to grow up and learn typically feminine tasks such as cooking, cleaning, laundry. The boy child is expected to learn more labor-intensive tasks. The boy child is expected to grow up to be the breadwinner, to be the earner of the household. Even within the household, certain tasks that are typically associated with men include plumbing, electrical work, anything that requires any heavy lifting. So in this way, we learn gender roles and norms within the household. As the child grows up, the child's social system expands. The child enters the school system. Once again, in schools, gender plays a huge role in the way in which a child is treated. Washrooms, uniforms, seating are all segregated as per the child's gender. Girls are seated to one side, boys on the other. Washrooms, as we know, are segregated in most schools and all other infrastructural setups. Uniforms are different for girls and boys. Typically, we see girls wearing skirts, boys wearing pants and shirts. It isn't restricted to just these things. Various intangible things such as mannerisms, behaviors are again taught in the school system. You may see girls are being taught to not laugh too loudly, to not speak too loudly, to cross their legs and sit like a lady. Boys, on the other hand, are taught not to do these things. Boys, on the other hand, are taught to be bold, to be confident, to engage in sports, and so on and so forth. So we have seen how gender is taught to us within school systems, within households, and like we said, it is all around us. One major influencing factor in the shaping and learning of gender as we grow up is the media. Audiovisual media such as advertisement, movies, television shows us various ways in which gender is manifested in our daily lives. For example, there is a famous Amitabh Bachchan dialogue which says, "Mard ko dard nahi hota." Men don't feel pain. Is that true though? I think men feel pain. All individuals are capable of feeling pain. However, this dialogue became such a phenomenon that for the longest time, men have been told that expressing pain is a sign of weakness. Boys are told not to cry. Whenever we see a boy crying, we say, "Ladki jaise kyun ro raha hai? Why are you crying like a girl?" But that's not true, is it? All of us cry, all of us are capable of feeling pain. However, as you can see, a certain expectation based on your gender has been enforced. Men are not expected to feel pain. For women, it is okay to show weakness, it is okay to cry. It's not so okay for men. This is how we see that even in media, Expectations based on your gender, norms based on your gender are constructed and reinforced to all the viewers, all the consumers of that media. Similarly, you may have seen advertisements that are targeted specifically at women, specifically at men. Certain brands only target their products at women and certain only at men. You may have seen Lux soap ads. They're always pink, they're always rosy, there's always a pretty actress in the frame using the product. You don't see men using Lux soap, at least in ads. However, in real life, we all use all kinds of soaps, right? So why are certain products targeted only at women? Why are flowery things typically feminine? Anyone can use flowery products. Gillette razors, Axe deodorants are all targeted only at men. In fact, there is a wheat advertisement which says razors are for men. Is that true? I use a razor, I'm not a man. So you see that even in media, constantly what are appropriate products for men and women, what are appropriate behaviors and expectations from men and women are constantly constructed and disseminated to us. Media is a big source from where we learn what are various expectations and appropriate behaviors based on our sex assigned at birth and based on whether we're perceived as a boy or a girl, a man or a woman. I hope you now have some insight into how gender comes to be constructed socially. You've seen the role that your parents, household, various family members, members of the school system come to play in the construction of gender. You're also seeing the role of media, which you consume constantly, and how that comes to shape our thoughts of gender. But our gender identity is internal to us, as we learned. It is our relation with our sex assigned at birth and how we are perceived and treated socially. What happens when there is a clash between the two? What happens when your gender identity does not match with the various gender norms, roles, and constructs being thrown your way because you're perceived as a girl or as a boy? The moment there is a clash between your internal sense of gender and the various expectations that are coming your way because of your presumed gender, you start to push back against it. You start to push against the norms, you start to push against the expectations, and gender evolves as a construct. It is only when we recognize the diverse individual experiences towards one's gender identity and various gender roles, norms, and expectations. It is only when we acknowledge fluidity and the uniqueness of each individual's experience will we truly be able to push the envelope on what gender as a construct is. And it is only when we push that envelope will we be able to arrive at a society which is inclusive, accepting, and equal.